The Old Farmer's Sons. Once upon a time there lived an old farmer who had 3 sons. The 2 older sons were lazy and greedy, wanting everything for themselves. The youngest son, however, was hard-working and gentle. He patiently helped his father work the land every day. But when he came home at night, his 2 jealous brothers took every opportunity to beat him and curse him. The old farmer noticed that he was growing weak and old. He knew that his 2 older sons were good for nothing and realized that after he died they would treat their younger brother cruelly. So he called his sons and told them that since he was too weak to work anymore, the boys should find jobs for themselves and each one be responsible for his own life. The old farmer gave each of them a sum of money and bid them farewell. The 3 brothers left the house and set off for unknown destinations. After a long walk they reached a crossroad where they separated. The youngest of the 3 sons, who was called Olad by his brothers, chose the road that led straight ahead. He walked and walked until it became very late. At night he reached a mountain and climbed to its peak. There, exhausted, he collapsed on a large flat stone and fell asleep. While asleep he dreamed that he was married to the king's daughter. The dream changed and he found many precious stones and gems from a stream and was married to 3 beautiful fairies. When he awoke he felt the warm sun on his shoulders. He climbed down the mountain and found a stream of clear water. He sat down by the stream, took out a piece of bread from his turban. While eating his bread he stared at the stream, thinking of nothing in particular. Just then an old man passed by and asked him what he was brooding about. The boy said that he was thinking of his life and added that he had seen a wonderful dream that night. He told his dream to the old man. The old man replied that he was a lucky fellow and advised him to pursue his dream. But despite the boy's further questions, the old man refused to say anything more. So the boy proceeded on his way, wandering many days and nights. He crossed many deserts and stumbled through huge forests until he reached a big, lively city crowded with people. This palace belonged to a king who had a very beautiful young daughter. No one in the city excelled her in beauty, charm and wisdom. The young princess was madly in love with a poor youth, but she knew that the king would prevent their marriage, so she was determined to run away with her beloved. The 2 lovers had arranged that the princess would escape from the palace at midnight, meet her lover at the marble road and travel to another city. Mounted on a horse, the princess reached the pavement a few minutes before midnight and found the farmer's son lying by the palace wall. She thought that he was her lover, so she walked her horse slowly up to the sleeping body and called out quietly to him. When he did not stir, she quickly grabbed him and put him on the horse behind her. They rode far away from the palace and the city, but the farmer's son was sound asleep on horseback. To avoid being caught, the princess continued on her way until she was very tired. By now, the farmer's son had woken up, but he kept very quiet. The princess said she was tired and asked him to take the horse's reins for a few minutes. The lad answered, "Keep on riding, we have not left your father's lands yet." The princess was startled by his voice and realized that she had made a mistake. When she looked at his face, she realized she had escaped with a stranger and had left her lover behind. She thought that it would be better for her to submit to her fate, because she was afraid to return to seek her true lover. On the spot she made up her mind to marry this boy, since he was strong and handsome. When they were well out of her father's lands, they dismounted from the horse at the foot of a mountain to rest. The spot they chose was remote and beautiful, and they decided to make a shelter for themselves. After much hard work they built a small wooden hut from tree branches so they could spend the nights there. One day the young man left his wife in the hut and went out hunting. When climbing the mountain he found a stream of clear water running along the side of the mountain. A line of trees threw shadows over the water. The young man was discouraged that he had not found any gems. He sat beside the stream to quench his thirst with the cool water. Suddenly he strewed some bright jewels in the stream. He picked up 2 bright stones thinking that they were colored marbles. He returned to his hut and found his wife asleep, so he sat outside in the sun and played with the gems. After a few minutes the princess came out of the hut and found her husband playing with what seemed to be marbles. Looking closer, she realized that they were precious jewels. Picking up one of them, she asked her husband where he had found such beautiful stones. The young man told her, and together they went back to the stream and gathered many more jewels from the water. They brought their treasures to the city and sold them for a very high price. With the money they built a marble palace, unequaled by any other in the region. The princess called a barber and asked him to shave her husband's beard and to trim his hair. She also called a tailor and asked him to make clothes for him. She gave her husband a good bath and cleaned him. The barber became jealous and was very angry to see a dirty young man living in such a huge palace, while he had to shave and to trim this man's hair. So he went to the king and reported that a dirty village boy had come to the city and built a marble palace. The king summoned the young man and his bride to his court. He wondered how it could be that such a foolish-looking villager could have such a beautiful wife and live in a palace more magnificent than his own. The king told his minister to find a way to kill the young man. Being a wise and far-sighted man, the minister pointed out that if the village lad was killed immediately, gossip would spread among the people that the king was suspect. It would be better to leave the couple alone for a few days until they found a reason to kill him. When the young man left the king's palace, he went to his wife and said, "I do not think it is safe for us to stay here any longer. You stay here while I'll go and do something about it." He left the house and climbed the mountain from where he saw the same stream of the jewels. He thought to himself, "I must follow my dream and find the source of the stream." He proceeded to follow the stream, going upstream all the way to its source. He walked for several days and nights, passing 7 big mountains, until he met an old man who warned him that it was very dangerous for a man to go into that area because an enormous giant lived behind the mountain. This giant could smell a human being from far away and would destroy anyone who crossed his territory. The young man said, "Go on, old man. I'm following my dream." He crossed this mountain too, and behind it he found a tall granite palace piercing up into the sky. He looked all over but could not find the entrance to the palace. Then suddenly he noticed that a stream of clear water ran out from beneath the palace wall. He slipped quietly into the stream and swam underneath the wall into the palace. Inside he saw a huge hall beautifully decorated with golden lamps and golden furniture everywhere. In one corner of the hall there was a golden bed. He went over to it and saw that a very, very beautiful girl was sleeping on it. He saw 2 fresh tree branches, one placed at the head of the bed and one at the foot. He took the branches and exchanged them, putting one at the head and one at the foot. The girl woke up. She was surprised to see the young man and asked him who he was and what he wanted. He told her that he was looking for the source of the stream of jewels. The girl said, "Poor boy, you are playing with your life. Quick, hide somewhere. Otherwise the giant will come and kill both of us." The farmer's son was surprised to hear this. The girl added, "Look here, young man. I feel sorry for you. I myself am a fairy and have been captured and held prisoner by this giant. Nobody can kill him because he has transferred his soul to a parrot, and the parrot is kept securely locked up in an iron cage in the dungeon. He will only die when the parrot is killed, but no one can find the parrot." The boy asked her to go to sleep again and said that he would go down to the dungeon to kill the parrot. The fairy said, "All right. Go to the dungeon and wait. As soon as the giant enters the hall and wakes me up, I will give you a signal and you must immediately kill the parrot. But be careful not to kill it sooner, or the giant will scream so loud that his brothers living in those faraway mountains will hear him and hurry down here to save him." The fairy tied a thread to her finger and gave the other end of the string to the young man to take with him down to the dungeon. She said she would pull the string as soon as she woke up. At this signal he would know that the giant was inside the hall where nobody would hear his loud scream. The young man went down to the dungeon and the fairy lay down on her bed and pretended to be asleep. Up to this time, the fairy knew nothing about the entrance to the palace or how the door opened. After a few minutes she was surprised to see half the wall slide over to one side and a door, 50 meters high, open up. The giant used to put the fairy to sleep by putting the branches on her bed before he opened the door so that the fairy would not know about the secret entrance. Now when the giant entered the hall, he kicked the wall 3 times and the wall slid back into its place and closed. Suddenly the giant roared, "I smell a human. Wherever he is, I will eat him." The fairy immediately pulled the string while still pretending to be asleep. The boy felt the signal, pulled his sword out of the turban around his waist and killed the parrot by cutting it to pieces. The giant roared and screamed madly but slumped to the floor and died. Since the walls were 2 meters thick, his brothers could not hear his voice. The giant fell lifeless on the floor like a huge boulder. The fairy got up and called for the young man. The young man was very afraid at first when he saw the giant, but when he realized that the giant was dead, he took courage again. When the fairy saw how brave the young man was, she fell in love with him at once. She said, "You have saved me from that horrible giant. I would like to marry you." The young man was delighted. They were ready to leave the hall. He planned to leave through the stream the way he had come in, but the fairy showed him the secret entrance in the wall. As soon as they had left the palace, the wall closed again and they happily went on their way. But then the fairy told him she was only one of 3 fairies, the other 2 of whom were held by the giant's brothers beyond the distant mountain. She added that no human being could reach that place. The young man was determined to save them too, so both set off together towards those mountains to save the other fairies in a similar manner. These 2 fairies also fell in love with the young man and asked him to marry them. He took all 3 fairies to the city and introduced his new wives to the princess. The princess was very pleased and they all celebrated for several days. Then the king of the city learned that the farmer's son was back in the city. He thought it was time to call for the young back and kill him. He ordered his minister to see to it. The minister summoned the young man and told him, "Look here, lad. The king has commanded you to bring a tray full of special caca flowers. Make sure that you do it or you will be killed by tomorrow morning." The young man went home worried and anxious. All the way home he thought about the king's order and how to fulfill it. When he got home, his wives asked him why he was so miserable. He told them about the king's order, but one of the fairies smiled and said, "Oh, don't worry about that. It is very simple to prepare the flowers." Pointing to another fairy, she said, "Whenever she laughs, caca flowers come out of her mouth." So they began tickling the fairy, who in turn started to laugh hysterically as dozens of flowers fell out of her mouth. They collected the flowers and put them on a tray for the young man to take to the king. When the king saw that his trick had not worked, he thought of something else. He told the young man to go and bring him a tray of rubies that shine at night. The king added that he would be killed if he failed to accomplish the task. This time he was given 1 week. Again the young man returned home sad and miserable, but one fairy cut her finger to make it bleed and held it over a bucket of water. As each drop of blood fell into the bucket of water, it changed to a ruby. The tray was soon filled with the precious stones and the young man brought it to the king. The king was enraged more than ever. He angrily ordered the young man to bring him a tray of pearls from the sea. The young man was again threatened with death if he failed to complete the order. He went home and told the story to his wives. They all determined again to save their husband, but it was very difficult to find the pearls. One of the fairies could produce pearls, but she could do so only when she wept profusely. As each tear fell into the water, it would turn into a pearl. But the fairy could not be forced to cry for no reason. She could only weep if she saw a tragic scene or if she was beaten badly. But the princess, the young man's first wife, thought of a clever way to make the fairy weep. She asked her husband to bring a knife and a sack of onions for the fairy to peel and chop. She placed a bucket of water in front of the fairy. This fairy hated onions, and when she began to peel and cut them up, the smell stung her eyes so much that her face flooded with tears. As the tears fell into the bucket of water, they all turned into the pearls. So the young man took the tray of pearls to the king, happily thinking that he was finally free of the king's ordeal. But the king and his minister were sure that all the pearls in the city together would not be enough to fill a tray, and they would have an excuse to kill the young man for not having carried out the king's order. When the young man appeared with the tray of pearls for the king and his minister were extremely annoyed. They tried to think of another way to kill the boy, so they asked him to find out how to bring messages from their dead ancestors. The king asked him to find out about his deceased father, while the minister asked him to find about his deceased mother. The king again told the young man that he would be killed if he failed to fulfill the order. The farmer's son was really disgusted with all of this and saw how useless it was. So he thought of a way to kill himself in order to be free of all these troubles. So he told the king that he would fulfill his order on the condition that they make a huge fire in front of the palace. He would go to the roof and jump into the fire. After 40 days they would find him under the ashes with the desired messages from their deceased parents. The king set a date for this event. They heaped great quantities of wood and coal in front of the palace and called all the people to gather to see the farmer's son perform a miracle. The king thought, if he can bring us messages from our dead ancestors, great. Otherwise he will be burned to a crisp in the fire and we will be rid of him. When the young man went home, sad and miserable, he told his first wife about his decision. She was very anxious and feared that her husband would finally be killed. She burst into tears and told the whole story to the fairies. They were not worried at all and even laughed. The king's daughter was surprised at this reaction, but then they told her how they would save him. After talking with the fairies and acting upon their advice, the young man went to the king and asked the king and his minister to write the information they wanted from their dead parents on separate pieces of paper and put them in separate envelopes. Then he would take them with him when he jumped into the fire. The appointed day arrived and a fire was made with tons of wood burning in front of the palace. After special ceremonies, the young man took the papers, climbed to the rooftop and jumped into the fire. Not seen by anyone else, the 3 fairies caught him in midair. The king, the minister and all the people around the fire thought that the young had perished in the fire. The fairies took the young man home, opened all the envelopes and wrote a special answer to each question. Then they closed the envelopes and waited 40 days. After 40 days the people gathered around the palace again for another celebration. The king was anxiously waiting to receive messages from his ancestors. Heaps of ashes lay in front of the palace where the fire had burned. The fairies had secretly hidden the young man under the ashes. The king ordered his men to remove the ashes and find the man. When they removed the ashes they were shocked to find the young man lying underneath entirely unhurt. They shook the ash from his clothes and took him to the king. They added that the messages were the correct answers to the questions about their dead ancestors. At first the king did not believe them, but when he opened the envelopes he saw that they answered exactly the information he had wanted. The king asked the young man if he himself could perform this miracle and visit his ancestors. The young man said, "Of course you can, but you must prepare a fire again and jump down into it yourself from the roof of the palace." The king consulted his ministers and they thought it would be sad not to see their dead ancestors for themselves. They made arrangements for the occasion, built a big fire and announced to the whole city that the king, along with some his dignitaries, would visit the dead and bring information from the other world. Many other dignitaries of the court thought that they should accompany the king on this grand journey, so a big celebration was held. The fire burned fiercely when the king and his following jumped from the rooftop into the fire. They were quickly burned to ashes. After 40 days the people gathered around the palace thinking that the king and his companions would come out safe and sound from the ashes. When they removed the ashes they found only charred bones. They asked the young man about this. He replied that the dead do not like cruel and greedy people, so they had refused to help them. The people were very pleased to hear this and exclaimed how lucky they were to be freed from the demands of a merciless king. The farmer's son was unanimously chosen as the new king and lived happily ever after with his 4 queens. Nouns. Dream means a series of thoughts, images, and feelings that you experience when you are asleep. Dungeon means prison. Opportunity means chance. Farewell means goodbye. Destination means the place that someone or something is going to. Crossroad means a road that intersects another road. Peak means high point. Gem means precious stone. Stream means river. Turban means a long piece of cloth that you wind tightly round your head. Fellow means a man or boy. Palace means the official home of a person of very high rank, especially a king or queen. Marble means a type of hard rock that becomes smooth when it is polished, and is used for making buildings. Pavement means sidewalk. Charm means the power or quality of delighting, attracting, or fascinating others. Wisdom means knowledge gained over a long period of time through learning or experience. Princess means a daughter of a monarch. Youth means young people in general. Lad means a boy or young man. Spot means particular place or location. Shelter means a place giving protection from bad weather or danger. Hut means a small simple building with only 1 or 2 rooms. Gem means a beautiful stone that has been cut into a special shape. Jewel means precious stones, gems. Bride means a woman on her wedding day or just before and after the event. Court means tribunal. Minister means a politician who is in charge of a government department. Source means the place where something begins. Territory means land that is owned or controlled by a particular country, ruler, or military force. Granite means a very hard gray rock, often used in building. Boulder means a large round piece of rock. Courage means bravery. Tray means a flat piece used for carrying things such as food. Bucket means a typically cylindrical container with a handle, used to hold and carry liquids. Ordeal means a painful or horrific experience, especially a protracted one. Sack means a large bag used for storing and carrying goods. Ancestors means a member of your family who lived a long time ago. Deceased means a person who has died. Occasion means a particular time or instance of an event. Dignitaries means someone who has an important official position. Companions means a person or animal with whom one spends time or keeps company. Queens means female rulers of a kingdom. Adjectives. Greedy means always wanting more food, money, power, possessions, etc. than you need. Gentle means sweet-tempered. Jealous means feeling unhappy because someone has something that you wish you had. Separated means apart. Exhausted means extremely tired. Precious means expensive. Wonderful means making you feel very happy. Lucky means having good luck. Magnificent means very good or beautiful, and very impressive. Foolish means lacking good sense or judgment, unwise. Dangerous means able or likely to cause harm or injury. Enormous means very big in size or in amount. Giant means extremely big, and much bigger than other things of the same type. Distant means far away in space or time, remote. Tragic means causing or characterized by extreme distress or sorrow, disastrous. Grand means big and very impressive. Fierce means done with a lot of energy and strong feelings, and sometimes violence. Cruel means making someone suffer or feel unhappy. Charred means partially burned or carbonized, blackened by burning. Determined means to decide definitely and firmly. Adverbs. Cruelly means brutally. Madly means in a wild, uncontrolled way. Immediately means without any delay, instantly. Hysterically means in an extremely emotional, out of control way, often with loud laughter or crying. Profusely means to a great degree, in large amounts, abundantly. Extremely means to a very great degree, very, exceedingly. Fiercely means in a powerful or aggressive manner, intensely. Unanimously means in complete agreement. Verbs. Beat means hit. Curse means to say or think bad things about someone or something because they have made you angry. Treat means behave towards. Bid means tell. Collapse means suddenly sit down, especially because you are very tired or want to relax. Stare means to look at someone or something for a long time, giving it all your attention, often without realizing you are doing so. Brood means think. Pursue means to follow or chase. Refuse means reject. Proceed means to continue to do something that has already been planned or started. Wander means to move around or go to different places, usually without a particular purpose or direction. Stumble means to walk or move in an unsteady way, often making a mistake or losing your balance. Excel means be superior. Stir means mix. Grab means catch. Submit means to present a document, proposal, etc., for consideration or judgment. Seek means to attempt to find or obtain something. Discourage means depress. Quench means to satisfy one's thirst by drinking. Pretend means to act as if something is the case when it is not. Roar means to make a loud, deep sound or cry. Scream means to make a very loud high noise. Slumped means to sit, lean, or fall heavily and limply, especially with a bent back. Celebrate means to acknowledge and praise a significant or happy day or event. Command means to give an authoritative order. Fulfill means to bring to completion or reality, achieve or realize. Shine means to give out a bright light. Accomplish means to achieve or complete successfully. Threatened means to state one's intention to take hostile action against someone. Weep means cry. Peel means to remove the outer covering or skin from a fruit, vegetable, etc. Chop means to cut something into smaller pieces. Consult means to seek information or advice from someone. Accompany means to go somewhere with someone. Separate means divide or split into different parts. Perform means accomplish. Phrasal verbs. Set off means start a journey. Pass by means go past without stopping. Run away with means to secretly go away with someone in order to marry them or live with them. Walk up means go to someone. Put on means to put a piece of clothing on your body. Be out of means have no more left. Go out means leave a place. Wake up means stop sleeping and become awake. Look for means search or seek something or someone. Run out of means have none left. Go into means enter or investigate something or a place. Please answer these questions in comments section. Questions. 1. How did the princess and the farmer's son marry? 2. The princess accepted her fate, rather than returning to her true lover. Was this a good decision? How do you think her true lover felt? What would you have done? 3. Why did the king want to kill the farmer's son? Had the farmer's son done anything wrong? How damaging is jealousy to a relationship? To a city? To a country? 4. What acts of bravery did the farmer's son display? What was his reward? 5. How did his 4 wives help the farmer's son? Did they show any jealousy? Do you think this is realistic? 6. What lesson do we learn from the ending of the story?